When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ludlow, and enjoy today's episode. Hello, folks. This is Mark Ludlow with the Fearless Mindset Podcast, and today we have a special guest with us, Anton. How do you pronounce your last name, Anton?
Kalaydjian.
Right. Anton, for you listeners tuning into this one, if you YouTube and search Anton, you'll find him in a documentary I watched last night just as a refresher, and you'll hear a lot about Anton's story of him getting shot in the EP industry. And it was ironic. Anton and I ran into each other in Vegas a couple months ago for the Close Protection Conference. And we had a heart-to-heart talk about the industry, where it's at, what it's become. And I really admire Anton for his passion and his zeal for being a professional in this industry. I mean, I don't know like he told me that they wanted to raise their hands of people that actually been shot in the EP industry, and his hand went up, and, he was willing to, give his life as a protectee for his client. And, being a Marine, that spoke to my heart. And he's, in my eyes, he's a servant warrior. And I have a lot of respect for Anton for what he's done for the industry. And Anton, thanks for coming on the show. And we're going to have more of a conversation type of talk on this show. As you guys know, I'm not big on interviews, but I like to have a conversation. So thanks for coming on.
It's my pleasure, man. Thank you. And I look forward to this. I know we had a really good talk in Vegas, and we discussed some topics, and I'm happy to get on here and discuss them with you. Hopefully some people out there that have any questions or have anything that they want to learn about our industry, maybe my 2 cents might help.
It definitely will. I mean, well, I think one thing that we talked about in Vegas was the work ethic. And I've seen a lot of people they seem like this last year, I call around the country, everybody wants $100 an hour. I'm like thinking to myself, wait, that's the bill rate. You're a sub. Sorry, I got to make some money on this too. What is your thoughts about the attitude, the culture in the United States on executive protection, celebrity protection? What do you see is changing in the last couple of years?
Well, I think a lot has changed in the last few years, and there's a lot of reasons for it. I think that a lot of people are getting into the EP, CP, celebrity protection, executive protection world because, they see that it is lucrative. And they see that, you got a lot of former military guys. It's kind of like it's a layup for them, right? To walk right into this industry. And a lot of former LEOs or current LEOs that just want to try something different, to where they don't have body cams on them everywhere they go. They're not dealing with defund the police. They're not dealing with other issues where they push the goalpost back, if you will, every time that retirement number comes up. So I think what we've seen in the last few years is an influx of professionals getting into our industry, and it's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. But also with that, with the guys that are solid, come the garbage guys as well. So you end up getting a diluted mass entrance into this industry, which is, I think, has in the last few years has been. I've been seeing more and more of it. I know that when I get applications and email for people looking for work, I've had more law enforcement and military guys email me the last 3 or 4 years than I ever had before. And like I said, it's a good thing, but I do see that a lot of people are coming towards this industry.
What does that tell you if you're seeing a huge increase of those applicants that are coming from law enforcement, military? Everybody wants a piece of that pie. Everybody wants to be a celebrity bodyguard. What do you take from that?
Well, I hate the word celebrity bodyguard. I think guys use that word to make themselves look cool. I think when it comes to celebrity protection, we're living in a world now where people want their own label, and they want their own brand, and they want their own social, and they want their own, they want to be their own. So what better way for them to do that than to be associated with a celebrity? And sometimes they use that celebrity's work ethic and their talent and their fame and kind of ride those coattails because they too want that kind of reflection upon how they are. But I don't like the word celebrity bodyguard. I never did. And the reason why is because when I got into this in 2000, and I started doing security in 96, and then I started doing it at a high level with CP end of 2002. Back then, there wasn't even camera phones, things were a lot different. And there was no real fame, if you will, or no real noticeability. You were definitely in the shadows. You were definitely never in the frame of the picture. You definitely laid very low. And I think that back then the passion was really there for me to where I was willing to, risk my life, not only physically as far as, the shootings and the stabbings and the arrests and all the other crap that I've had to deal with throughout the years, but the sacrifice of time that I mentioned often, that sacrifice was because of the passion for the industry. And, and here we are in 2023. And I think that it's gotten so diluted and the celebrity protection industry I'm naming, not really the EP industry as much. Maybe they are, but I speak more on the CP side. I just think it's diluted to where I'm at the point now where I'm thinking like, this is not the honorable industry I signed up for 20 something years ago, 20 years ago, exactly. 2 decades of my life I've been putting into this because it's the oldest profession in the world. And it's one of the most honorable professions in the world. And just the way it is being handled right now, you start losing passion because you're like, oh, can anybody do this? Because obviously the door is wide open for anybody to do it right now. And you got people that'll undercut rates, and you got people that'll do all sorts of things to try to get work. And that's because they have ulterior motives. They're not there for necessarily the honor of the job and making the paycheck. It's more to do everything else I mentioned, which is building the brand, being associated, all that extra stuff. So it is frustrating. I don't want to sound like an old man, but it is frustrating. It's happening now, but I still believe in it, Mark. I still think that there's honor in there. There's good guys out there at the very high level when you're dealing with celebrity protection at the top, let's say 10 or 20 acts in the world. You can still see that quality. It's the younger ones that you start seeing it dilute. So that's why I think it's important that we have schools and we have seminars where you have reputable guys that are really trying to bring back the culture. And hopefully we can. And if we can't, we can't. The odds are stacked up against us, but I believe we can.
I love your heart, Anton. I mean, you're not one that you've been on the cameras. It's not a big deal to you. Like, we both got the T-shirt. You did well with that industry, but you earned that respect of the people in the industry. But I mean, you got shot when you're with 50 Cent, I believe. Is that kind of what happened? You're with him or somebody else?
No, I wasn't with him. I was on that tour. He was nowhere around it. That's something that happened 20 years ago. There's a lot more that's happened that we don't talk about. And the reason why I did the documentary is I've been asked to do documentaries before, and I've turned them down because oftentimes if people try to talk more about the artist than they are about the guard. But I did the documentary because one of my clients is if you see the executive producers that roll up the names, you'll notice the names there, that he was my client's father, not 50, he's different, a pop artist. And he asked me to do it. So I did it. But again, that's why a lot of people know that particular story. I was just a feature in one documentary, but I think that was one story out of a million stories in the last 20 years that are so much more crazy and intense that I think that, if people wouldn't believe it if we discussed it. If we talked about it, they wouldn't believe it. So, and obviously we got NDAs in place, so I don't want to get too deep into it.
True.
But it is definitely a high risk industry where you do lose people, and that makes it even more hit your heart more. That it makes it more than just the passion of protecting someone. Losing colleagues as well. That hits your heart even harder.
Sure. Now you said you've been in the business for what, 2 decades?
Yeah, this level. I started off in the nightclubs when I was 18. I was a big kid. Miami, South Beach, West Palm Beach. It's all nightclub industry down here. So believe it or not, I was a stockbroker, an investment advisor at a very young age. At 20 years old, I got my Series 7. And I
Really?
yeah.
Did not know that. Wow.
Yeah. Ladenburg Thalmann. It was an old firm, a 120-year-old firm at the time. And was very happy with where I was at. I just did this on the weekends because young brokers don't really make money. You got to build your book of clientele.
True.
So, me figuring, hey, I'm working here 50, 60 hours a week. What am I doing on the weekends? Instead of hanging out and doing dumb stuff, I grew up I grew up pretty poor. I needed the money. So I just started bouncing. And then as I bounced, I started getting good at it. And it just kind of came naturally to me. I've been protecting people my whole life as a child, and getting into becoming an adult. It's just, I've always looked out for the underdog, and I've always been able to, I never liked to see people fight, and I'd always break it up naturally. So being a bouncer, it was kind of like, hey, this makes sense. I could do this more often. And then after a few years of being a broker, we got bought out by another company, and the firm kind of became a chop shop. So a lot of us left because we didn't like the way things were. So then I had to go restart and build the book again. And when I did that, I got the opportunity to do celebrity protection with 50. Company I was working for at the time had him as a contract, asked me if I could go on the road and work for that tour. I agreed to it. I checked with my broker boss. He said, go for it. I did. And then the rest is history. I never looked back.
So did you let your Series 6 to 76 license go at that point?
At first I wouldn't, because I have a 7 and a 63. So I didn't want to. Yeah. So the 7's the big one, right? The 7's they say the second hardest exam in the state of Florida, next to the bar. So once you pass that,
right,
you never want to let it expire. And it was kind of like testing the waters. I was like, do I want to be a bodyguard? And I know a lot of guys don't use that word, but whatever. We can. There's 20 different words for what we do. Or do I want to continue to be an investment advisor and build my book out? And I thought to myself, you know what, man? Growing up without any money and never being really out of the state, let me go see the world. Let me give this a shot. This is a hell of an opportunity. And then I could always push pencils later. That was my mindset. I could always go back to the calculator later. So I let my 7 hang for a while. And then I think the rule was 2 years, and the SEC and the NASD would have to expire your license. So a buddy of mine had a brokerage firm. I parked it over there. You make one trade and it renews it. So I made one trade, renewed it. So I had it for 4 years as a bodyguard. And then on my 4th year was my last year. Well, I stopped working with 50. I started my own company, Guardian, in 2005. And that's when I just said, forget being a broker. I'm going headfirst into the security thing.
I had no idea you're an investment broker. That is so cool.
A lot of people know that, man. I loved it, to be honest. It was an exciting job, and I loved it. I love wearing a suit every day to work. I love being a young guy in Boca Raton, Florida, in a real nice area. Going to work there every day, and I like back then being a broker was pretty cool. Nowadays, it's not really a thing. You got Ameritrade, E-Trade, Schwab. So a lot of people do it on their own. But back then, it was pretty awesome. And I would have probably stayed had we not got bought out. Had we not got bought out, I would have never been a bodyguard. So,
no kidding. Wow.
Everything happens for a reason, Mark. Like I say,
it does.
I was like 50-50 for a long time. Do I do this or do I do that? And then when I made a decision, it wasn't a big decision. It was a big decision, but it wasn't. It was like a 51%, 49%. Like I was really, so even to this day, I think maybe I should have stayed doing that. But everything happens for a reason. You can't look back, and I wouldn't have it any other way, because right now, I put that business mind with the security mind and created a security business, and it's been doing well. We're in year 18 now, so we're doing
18 years. Wow. Yeah, and for the audience listening, that license that Anton had is one, like he said, it's equivalent to passing your bar exam to be a lawyer. It's that hard because you're dealing with numbers, investments, and the different laws of investing. In the Federal Trade Commission, I think, is involved with all that, and the FDIC and all that stuff too. And so that test is no joke. I mean, people told me I should go get that license. Like, no way. I got my criminology degree, and I'll let the investment guy handle that. But it just shows how smart you are, Anton, and able to run a business successfully because you understand numbers.
Thanks, man. It's grit to me more than it's brains. I think that just don't take no for an answer. Like, failure's not an option. I failed my first time taking the test, Mark, to be honest with you. And I studied my ass off for that thing. I remember just even in my bathroom, I'd have cue cards like taped up against the walls. So I'm flipping the cards, lights, I'm flipping cards, cue cards, and I failed the first time. But again, I was working 50, 60 hours as a broker, studying, and then being a bouncer 3 nights a week, getting home at 5, 6 a.m. And back then I was also, I took care of my nephew. I was 18 years old, and I ended up becoming a legal guardian for my nephew, Anthony, who was 6 months. So I had a little baby at home, and I'm working and I'm studying for the 7. So I failed the first time, but failure's not an option. So I just went back to it and, studied harder and went at it again and passed. And I remember that day like it was yesterday. I was so excited that I passed, and I thought, okay, now I can start my life, not knowing that, wait a minute, 4 years in, you're going to do a complete right turn, and you're not going to be on this road to finance anymore. You're going to be on a road that's totally opposite, which is protection.
So you had a couple of big events in your life. One, passing that license series to become an investment broker. And then when your company got bought out, well, do I want to be a broker anymore? Or do I want to go in the EP industry and to tour the world? And those are big, forks in the road decisions you had to make. And you went all in. And I think the difference with the new EP agents, they're not all in. I think they're trying it out. And back in the day, we just had Craigslist, and that's all we had. And people that knew you called you. We didn't have all these opportunities for people to find you. And it was so hard to find work back then. You've been in it for 20 years. I got in it in 2008. And I moved to LA to work. And, but it's just, like you said, it's, you went all in, you didn't look back. I'm going to do this. And you had a kid, you had your nephew you were raising, and you walked away from that career. And wow, not many people can do that.
No, it wasn't easy. It definitely wasn't easy. It definitely was a lot of, like I said before, a lot of sacrifice. And when you own a company and if you're the guy that created the company and you're the guy that runs it, you've got a responsibility to your employees to create work for them. So it's not just an EP guy looking for a job. It's an EPCP guy looking for jobs for all his people. And that adds a lot of pressure onto it, especially with what we mentioned earlier in the podcast, as far as, the amount of dilution in the industry and the amount of undercutters and all other stuff. So it does prove difficult, but, we've done very well. We've had great growth, and it's just, a lot of people look at the position as EP company owner, agency owner, and thinking, oh, that'll be cool. It's not cool, man. It's a horrible life. I'm up before the sun comes up. I'm in bed, early 9 o'clock. I'm back doing it again, and you really don't have a life, because you don't just have to worry about your annual income. You got to worry about hundreds. Literally, we have hundreds of people here, and I got to make sure that there's a lot of stress on your shoulders when it comes to that. So you do sacrifice a lot of, and I touched that on the documentary. You sacrifice on a lot of like holidays and relationships and a lot of other things in life. So it is a lot of hard work, man. But here we are. 17 years. It was November. That was our birthday. We're jumping into 18, and we're still here. So I'm fortunate to where I'm in a position where the people in this company have been with me forever, and I've been with them forever. And we've got the right captains in the right spots. We got a residential commercial division, and we got a guy I know there for over 25 years, and he runs that. I don't get involved. He kills it. We got an event division, a guy that's been with me for 16 years. He runs that. And we do every major event down to the little events. And then we've got the celebrity protection, executive protection, which is the division I run. We also have a high intensity division, which is another guy runs. And we're GSA contractors this year. So we have another guy running that. So we got the right captains in order, and underneath them are the right sub captains, if you will. So we're at a good spot now, but getting to here was all on you, and it was a ton of pressure and a ton of work.
What people don't see is that 17 years of grinding, like you said, no sleep, you're all in, almost like a Navy SEAL going around the world, getting missions done.
Yeah.
And people don't see that journey behind the scenes.
No, they don't. I recently counted my passport stamps, 250 plus.
Wow.
So So I ended up making putting a tattoo. But 250 times I've crossed borders. That's a lot, man. And 17 years running the company, but also another 4 years before that, before I had a company. So 3 or 4 years. So, it is tolling. It is very tolling.
What is your advice to the young generation coming into this industry? What if you were told the young Anton how to have a success in a new era that we're in the United States, new threats, new issues? What would your advice be to them?
I think kids have it. I think young guys have it. They don't. I think you and I, Mark, had it better than they do because I think all they see is what they see. They don't know any better. They weren't around before, so they didn't see the honorable times. They didn't see the times where it wasn't, look at me, everybody. So it's difficult for them. So as an older guy, I would say to a younger guy coming in, everything that's flashy, shiny isn't gold. Just because it's shiny and flashy, don't fall for that. Don't fall for something to where you think, oh, that looks cool, I want to do that. A lot of this stuff is staged, and a lot of the stuff that people see is pretend and make believe and dress up, and it's just not reality. I would let them know there's going to be a lot of holes and walls in your life. There's going to be a lot of downtime as far as you not having any action. 99% of what you're going to do is downtime and logistics and soft skills and things like that. So, when you look at these, Bourne Supremacy movies and movies like John Wick, and I don't want young guys thinking that's what this is, because it's not.
It's not.
You're going to be at the Four Seasons for 12 hours in a chair looking at hallways, looking at maids and room service and guest walkthrough. So I would just let them know that don't believe the flash. Not everything that's flashy is real. But if you want to get into this industry, I do suggest getting into an agency, a school, for example. I know there's a lot of good schools out there. That I would suggest doing that first and foremost. Spend the money, invest in your future, get certifications, learn the basics. And then when you do get involved to a level, be humble and walk into this with humility. Everybody's big, everybody's strong, everybody's tough. I get it. I get our industry. I'm so sick of it. But let's put your pride aside for a second. If you want to get into this industry and you really want to make yourself a value to the industry and a value to yourself and your family, be humble, be willing to learn, and don't fall for the flash. And then the final thing is work. Work like I always tell my guys. When I say my guys, I'm their guy too. I belong to them. They belong to our team. I tell my guys all the time, the younger guys, I don't care if it's a small client or if it's a huge client. You treat them like it's a huge client and a high-risk client every time, because you never know who's watching. So that's my suggestion to young guys. If you might have some executive that's not really a high C-suite level, or maybe you've got a celebrity who's not really that well known, or maybe you got an athlete who doesn't really sell that many jerseys, doesn't matter. Treat them like it's Michael Jackson. Treat them like it's Bill Gates. Because if you put that kind of work ethic into everything you do, now I'm not saying you do it once or twice, people are going to notice, but after doing it for many years, eventually the cream rises to the top. And I would say almost 100% of Guardian's business has been word of mouth. It's because people watch. Yeah, 100%. I got a website that I haven't updated in years. I'm not the greatest marketer. My guys had twisted my arm to do an Instagram years ago. I did it, but I don't put a quarter of what we do or a quarter of our clients on there. It's very bland and vanilla. But it's almost all word of mouth. No knocking on doors, no pitching. I have a brochure again. I haven't updated here on my wall. I don't know if you can see it. I haven't updated that thing, and
wow,
because I never saw the practicality of it. Now maybe there is, but I found in our industry it's mostly word of mouth. So that's my suggestion to young guys: treat every client like the biggest client you've ever had, and just be humble and work hard.
Anton, you bring back a lot of memories now. Because when I got into business, they called me Ludlow, the truck monkey. I was up and down the I-5 corridor, San Francisco to LA. I lived in my car, in Hotel 6, and I treated every job every day was an interview. That's how I worked.
Yeah, also Mark, every day could be this is a serious industry. You could die that day. Your client could get hurt that day. There might be a car accident that day. Somebody might get shot that day. Your client might have a seizure and pass. Like, it's not only treated like it's the biggest client you've had, but treat it like it's high risk, even if it's not. Treat it like it's have your IFAC ready, have your medical training. I remember another thing for younger guys. I'm 45. When I was about 25, 26, I'd never seen a seizure before. I didn't know what to do, but I thought to myself, okay, I'm starting Guardian Up. It's 2005 at this time, I want to say. I'm starting Guardian Up, and let me start off by doing first aid, CPR, AED, the basics, because I don't know it. I'm not a medical guy. I did finance and security and never medicine. So I did that. And then within 6 months after working for a client, he had a seizure in his jet, like out of the blue. And then we had to do an emergency landing, but I knew exactly what to do because I took the course. Meanwhile, everybody else in the jet, it was a private jet, so it's his buddies and his colleagues. Hey, give him water, hold him down, and telling them to do everything that you're opposite of what you're supposed to do. And, I took the time to get that cert. So, it ended up being effective. And the reason I mentioned that, and it's happened many times after that where I've needed to do the medical thing, but the reason I mentioned that is because you can't think to yourself like, okay, it's not a big deal. It's not a big client. They might have a medical situation to where they need your assistance. And if you don't know what you're doing, then they could end up getting hurt. So that's why I say treat every client like they're the biggest client you ever had and like they're high risk, because you might say to yourself, oh, nothing ever happens. I don't have to worry about gun violence. I don't have to worry about any kind. We're going to be fine. But there was always a car accident. There's always a medical issue. There's always something. So that's why I say, never keep your guard down. I always say when your guard's down, that's when you get knocked out. So always keep your guard up and work hard and treat every client like they're the biggest client in the world.